Okay, hello guys. Today, just want to give you a quick tutorial. Most of you have done absolutely fantastically making your different paints, so well done. I really enjoyed seeing some of those, and I enjoyed making my own. Hopefully you should have labelled all of them so you know what you used before. What we're going to start doing now is going back and using those paints, and you can choose whichever ones you thought were successful. If you only could kind of find one or two things in your cupboard to make paints from, that's fine. You could do this as a tonal painting. That's not a problem, using one colour. If you found a couple of really interesting colours, you could mix this up and use two. Okay, so I'll show you what that means in a minute, but we are coming back to our homemade paints. We're going to use them today. So what we're going to need today to do this, you can see my bits and bobs here. I've got my sketchbook, I've got my plate again, like we used before for our mixing palette. I've got a little bit of water for some painting. I've got my materials, got my two kind of homemade paint objects that I really thought were good. So I'm using my pickled red cabbage and I'm using my turmeric for my kind of very reddish, no, actually it goes blue. You can see here, it goes blue. So I thought that was fascinating. And I'm using my yellow turmeric for two interesting colours. And I've also got an apple here. I'm going to actually be drawing that today. But you can choose what you're going to draw for this piece of work. I do have some paintbrushes, but do remember that you can make your own brushes if you prefer. And I've got some tissue in case I make a little bit of a mess. Okay, so first thing we're going to do, I'll just try and keep the computer down here and you can have a look as I go. I'm going to start with a new page in our book. Let me find a nice clean page. I've used up so much of this sketchbook already. Too much work from home. Okay, so I'm going to use a new sketchbook, and what I want you to do for this task is choose a food object. It can be food, it can be drink. You can choose anything you want, but I want you to choose a food or drink object. Great things for this are vegetables and fruit. They're fantastic. If you don't have that, you're fine to use a packaged item. So you could use a ketchup bottle, or you could use, my jar there, a red pickled cabbage. I could draw that. So choose an item of food or a product in your house. That's what we're going to do today. And we're just going to start off sketching it. So, sorry it's a little bit sideways here, but hopefully you can see it. I have my apple. So I'm just going to have a little go at drawing my apple. And I've chosen apple. It's a very nice, easy, simple shape to draw. But also I thought there was a few interesting colour differences with my apple. So I thought that might be quite a good one to draw. So I'm going to put that there so you can see it. And I'm just going to quickly sketch out. I'm not going to take loads of time over it because, again, it's a simple shape. If it's a more complicated shape, you might want to take a little bit more time over it. I'm just going to sketch out my kind of apple shape. Just adding in some key details. We are going to be painting this, so don't panic about lots and lots of shading and tone. I'm just adding in my detail with my object there. A few little hints, using some lines to show me the direction I'm going to paint in a little bit. And maybe I'll kind of mark out a bit of a shadow for later. Okay, so I know it's very, very light. Just to show you, I'm just starting off with a really basic outline of a drawing, just like that there. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do, I need to make my paints. Just want to see if you can see okay there. I think it's all right. Hopefully you can see it okay. So let's lift this up a little bit. So next I need to make my paints. So I'm going to get myself a paintbrush. As we said on the document, if you don't have a paintbrush, you can make your own using some tissue or anything like that. If you do have a paintbrush, then you can use it here. I'm going to start off with a bit of water and I'm going to start making my paint. So I'm going to use some of my turmeric. I'm going to start mixing up my yellow. Okay, just so I've got it ready for when I start painting, adding water to it, swirling it around. It's good to go. My red pickled cabbage, that's actually kind of outdated and I'm chucking it away anyway, so I'm going to go straight out the jar. I wouldn't recommend doing that when you're working for your parents. Please do talk to your parents about what you're using. Don't dip your paintbrush into objects you're going to be eating. Okay, but I'm about to chuck this away anyway, so I'm going to go straight into the jar and use it there. Okay, and then, so first of all, what I want you to see is earlier, I did say to you that if you only have one colour, it's actually fun, play around with your tonal range and you can just do a painting in one tone. So what I'm actually going to start doing, my pickled cabbage, is just play around with seeing how kind of tonal I can make this. So by adding a couple of layers of my colour, I'm going to make a very dark tone. You can see I'm kind of building that up just at the bottom, just a little tester. If I add a bit of water to this as I go and put a little bit less on it, I can make my colour a little bit lighter. Maybe a little bit more on there. And then if I add a little bit more water to it, I can even make it a little bit lighter. A little bit more water, a little bit lighter. So you can see that you can actually make quite a good tonal range using these colours. You can just see along here my tonal range. So you can just use one colour for this, and then you could use your darker tones and your lighter tones for this work if you wanted to. I do have two colours I thought worked really well, so I'm going to use both for my task, but you can just paint the whole thing tonally with dark to light of one colour. What I really love about this pickled cabbage, red cabbage, is that you can see it kind of changing colour as it dries. So in a minute it's going to go purple and then blue. Love this colour. So I'm not bothered in this piece of work about colours being realistic. Okay, we're not going for realistic colours. So it's more about tone with this work, and you can have a bit of fun with this and choose your own colour. So I've got yellow and what will theoretically, when it dries, be blue. It's going to look red while I'm painting, but it's going to change to blue. So I'm going to have a yellow and blue painting. I'm doing an apple, so I might mix those and get some greens. But you don't have to do realistic colours. If you want to draw an apple and you've only got coffee and browns, that's absolutely fine. Okay, don't panic about the colour being realistic. So first thing I'm going to do, I think, is go with my yellow turmeric for my actual apple painting. And I'm going to start applying it to the areas that on here are kind of the lighter green colours. The lighter green. I'm just going to start off sketching out my area. And again, doing some, oh, sorry, it's going to be shaking. The camera's going to be shaking the whole time I'm working. Apologies. So, and again, like I said, with the cabbage, if you add some water, you'll get some lighter tones. And if you want some darker tones, just build that up with a bit more of the turmeric in there. And I can get some really nice darker tones. Actually, I want darker in there, not there. Bit darker in there. Okay, so we can start seeing some tonal range happening in my apple, and not texture. Do please think about your texture of the object you're drawing. If it's a packaged bottle or a pot or something, it might be quite smooth. If it's a piece of fruit or vegetable, is it textured? Is it rough? How are you going to show that? So like I said, I'm just picking out all the areas that look kind of green on this picture to me. It's my cat in the background playing with a toy. Do you have to do it now? Right, and now I'm going to move on to my red pickled cabbage, and I'm going to do this. What's quite easy. I'm going to do the red areas with this pickled cabbage, but it is going to turn blue. You can see it changing already down there into my blues. So I'm going to start building up. I'm going to start off with the darker shadowed area, and I'm going to sketch that in around this corner. And because it's dark, I want to put a lot of that pickled cabbage juice on there because I want it to be dark. So I'm building it up, putting quite a lot on. It will dry eventually, but I'm keeping it quite thick and wet at the moment. Okay, and sketching round. Again, think about the texture, think about the direction. Because my apple is curved, I am curving my lines around. Curving because the object is curved. Think about that as you're doing it. Okay, and I can see some textures happening here. This is going to look so different when it dries. I can't wait to put a picture of it up when it dries. Okay, I'm just going around kind of the outside for now, picking out all these red bits. Nice darker area around there. More juice. This is the fun thing, because these paints are unconventional, not normal paints, you can kind of work out what works best for you and how you're going to use them. Okay, what I might try and do now, because I'm using two colours, and again, you don't have to, I'm going to try mixing a couple of my colours on my palette again. You can see over here, I'm going to try mixing some of my red with some of my yellow. And right now, I know it's going to look orangey, but I do know when it dries, it's going to go a bit green. It's going to be more of a green because I'm mixing my blue and my yellow together. Primary colour knowledge, guys. Okay, I'm going to use that as kind of a mid-tone. If you're just using one colour, it could just be like your kind of middle tone just here. But I'm going to start using that almost to blend the two colours together. Still keeping an eye on my texture. And all these areas that are quite wet, I can start blending those in. That is going to look absolutely fabulous. Still want to be adding some more darker areas. So you might want to build up a couple of layers. Well, once it dries, if you're using quite light colours, once it dries, you could always build top colours onto it. If you're using coffee or tea and it's not coming out very dark, you could wait. Right, I'm going to do the stalk just here. You might want to wait, for some areas, you might want to wait till it dries. Okay, where I'm doing my stalk here, it's bleeding into the yellow a little bit because it wasn't dry yet. You can work in layers if you want to and let an area dry before moving on to the next bit. I'm going to add in some shadows in places, some darker areas just there, some darker areas just there. And actually, I think as well, I'm going to add my shadow in. I'm just thinking, I think I'm going to do green for my shadow. And again, I probably should wait until this is dry before I start adding my shadow. I'm going to try not to touch my object too much. Obviously, I would want it touching, but I'm going to try and keep it fairly separate at the moment. And I'm actually going to try and do a shadow where I fade from that kind of darker, kind of cabbagey, what will be blue colour out. Oh, use the water. Out to that kind of yellowy colour on the outside. And that'll look really good. Nice tonal range going on there. A bit of water to kind of fade out that shadow, because shadows never have really solid outlines. So you want to keep that really soft around the outside. Okay, and that's what I've got at the moment. Let me just lift it up so you can see. You can see already that bottom tonal layer drying just there. Apologies, it's sideways and that's a bit annoying. I'll turn it the right way up for you. Okay, so that's my starting painting. Using food. So weird, just using those couple of little bits. Pretty happy with that. So this is your challenge. Your challenge is to have a go at making your own painting of any food that you choose. Fruit and vegetables would be a really great choice. If not, you can use a packaged item. They can be a bit hard, especially if there's text on them. You're going to sketch out with pencil first, or a coloured pencil. Anything you've got is absolutely fine. Sketch out the outline. Then you're going to choose out your colours, get them all ready. Make sure you talk to your parents first. Make sure you're okay to use them. Make sure you're not ruining the food if you need it. Picking out your colours, or one colour, it's absolutely fine. And you're either going to do a tonal painting, meaning making your dark and light colours, or you're going to do a couple of colours. You're fine to use as many colours as you want. I don't mind at all. If you found a way to make a whole rainbow of colours and you want to do a realistic rainbow painting, fantastic. I cannot wait to see these submissions. You are going to have a bit of time to do this. You can work on it over half term as well if you want to. You don't have to if you want to. Really looking forward to some lovely pictures. You can see I've worked on A4. Don't need to go any bigger than A4, one A4 page. Right, fantastic. Any questions, do email me, post them on Google Classroom. I will answer them as soon as I can. Fantastic. Bye.